I thought I was building a future, but I was actually just digging a grave for my own dreams. Have you ever looked at the person sleeping next to you and realized they were the anchor pulling you down into the dark rather than the partner helping you sail? Stay tuned because what happened when my bank account hit zero will change how you look at your own relationships forever. Before we dive into the heartbreak and the betrayal, please subscribe to the channel. And as you listen, let me know in the comments, have you ever sacrificed everything for someone who gave you nothing in return? The silence in our apartment wasn't the peaceful kind. It was the heavy, suffocating silence of a clock ticking toward a deadline I couldn't meet. My name is Sarah, and at 35, I felt like I had lived 3 lifetimes. Most people my age were planning vacations or looking at houses with backyards. I was looking at the soles of my shoes, wondering if they'd last another month of walking between my 3 jobs. My day started at 4:30 a.m. The world is cold and indifferent at that hour. I worked the breakfast shift at a greasy spoon diner until 10 a.m., smelling of old coffee and cheap bacon. From there, I'd sprint, literally sprint, to an office building where I spent 6 hours doing data entry that made my eyes bleed. By the time the sun started to set, I wasn't going home. I was heading to my 3rd job, cleaning a local gym until midnight. Why? Because I had a plan, a silver lining. I was saving for a car, not a luxury sedan, not something to show off, just a reliable, used SUV. In my town, a car meant freedom. It meant I could stop scrubbing floors and start driving for a high-end delivery service or rideshare during peak hours. It was my ticket out of the poverty trap. I had a jar hidden in the back of the closet and a separate savings account that Mark, my husband, wasn't supposed to touch. Mark. Just saying his name felt like a weight on my chest. When we met 10 years ago, he was charming, ambitious, and full of big ideas. But somewhere along the line, the ambition turned into arrogance. Mark didn't have a job. Well, he searched for jobs, but nothing was ever up to his standards. "Sarah, I'm a project manager by trade," he'd say, leaning back on the couch with a beer I had paid for, watching me lace up my sneakers for my 3rd shift. "I can't just go flip burgers or work in a warehouse. It would ruin my resume. I'm waiting for the right fit. I deserve a position that reflects my value." "Value doesn't pay the electric bill, Mark," I whispered one evening, too tired to even argue. "You have no vision," he'd snap back. "You're content being a drone. I'm trying to build a legacy for us." That was his favorite word, legacy. But the only legacy we had was a pile of past due notices and the calluses on my hands. I was working 18 hours a day so he could maintain his dignity. I felt more like a parent to a rebellious teenager than a wife to a man. Every dollar I earned was a drop in the bucket. $5, $10, $20. I tracked it religiously in a small notebook. $8,000. That was the goal. I needed $8,000 for a decent vehicle and the initial insurance. For 3 years, I hadn't bought a new dress. I hadn't gone to a movie. I ate the leftovers from the diner and told myself it was fine. One Tuesday, I came home from the office job to change into my cleaning clothes. Mark was uncharacteristically excited. He was pacing the living room, talking loudly on his phone. "Yeah, man. No, I totally get it. The ROI is insane. My wife? Oh, she's totally on board. She trusts my business instinct." My heart did a slow, painful somersault. He hung up and looked at me with a grin I hadn't seen in years. "Sarah, you won't believe it. I ran into Dave Miller. Remember him? From high school. He's a tech consultant now. He's got this ground floor opportunity. It's a digital logistics platform. He needs a local partner to handle the operations side. This is it. This is the more I've been telling you about." I felt a chill that had nothing to do with the air conditioning. "Mark, we don't have money for opportunities. We have money for rent and my car. That's it." "Think bigger, Sarah," he shouted, throwing his arms out. "The car is a toy. This project, this could buy us 10 cars. It's a sure thing. Dave already has 3 investors. He's doing me a favor because we were boys back in the day." "I don't care about Dave," I said, my voice trembling. "I care about the fact that I haven't slept more than 4 hours a night in 3 years. Do not touch my savings, Mark. I mean it." He rolled his eyes, that familiar look of condescension crossing his face. "You're so small-minded. This is why you'll always be a waitress." I left for the gym, crying silently in the dark as I walked. I told myself he couldn't get into the account. I had changed the password, I had the physical jar hidden. I was safe. Or so I thought. The next few days were strange. Mark was helpful. He made coffee, he didn't complain when I asked him to do the dishes. I thought maybe he finally understood. Maybe he saw how close I was to the goal. I was at $7,600, just $400 more. 2 more weeks of double shifts and I'd be free. On Friday, I finished my shift at the gym early. I wanted to surprise him. I wanted to tell him that I'd found a listing for a Toyota RAV4 that was perfect. I walked into the apartment, my body aching, my head spinning with exhaustion, but my heart full of hope. The apartment was dark. Mark was sitting at the kitchen table, the glow of his laptop illuminating a face that looked different. Not happy, not excited, empty. "Mark?" I asked, dropping my bag. "What's wrong?" He didn't look up. Dave isn't answering his phone." A cold sweat broke across my neck. "What are you talking about?" "The project," he whispered. "There was a deadline for the initial capital, a buy-in fee to secure the territory. He said if I didn't get it to him by today, the slot would go to someone else." I ran to the closet. I pushed aside the old coats and reached for the shoebox. It was light, too light. I ripped the lid off. The jar was gone. The cash, $2,200 I had kept in bills, was gone. I scrambled to my phone, my fingers shaking so hard I could barely type. I logged into my savings account. $0.14. The $5,400 I had meticulously moved from my paychecks over 36 months had been transferred out 2 days ago. "What did you do?" I screamed, the sound tearing from my throat like a wounded animal. "What did you do?" He finally looked at me, and there was no remorse, only a pathetic, defensive anger. "I invested it," he yelled, standing up and looming over me. "I'm trying to save us. Dave said the returns would be triple next month. I'm the man of this house, Sarah. I have a right to make decisions for our future." "Our future?" I choked out, collapsing onto the floor. "You stole my life. You stole 3 years of my sweat and my blood for a feeling from a guy you haven't seen in 15 years? "He's my friend," Mark yelled, standing up and looming over me. "He wouldn't screw me over. The site is probably just having a glitch. He'll call me back." But deep down, in the hollow of my stomach, I knew. Dave Miller wasn't a tech consultant. Dave Miller was a ghost. And my $7,600, the car, the freedom, the hope, was gone. I stayed on that floor for hours. Mark eventually went to bed, grumbling about how unsupportive I was. As I sat in the dark staring at the empty shoebox, something inside me didn't just break, it died. The woman who stayed and hoped was gone. I didn't know it yet, but this was the beginning of the end. And the man I was about to meet at my second job, the one I thought was just another face in the crowd, was about to show me exactly what I truly was worth. I woke up the next morning, but for the first time in years, I didn't want to get out of bed. My muscles didn't just ache from work, my soul felt bruised. My husband had gambled away my freedom on a dream that wasn't mine. Have you ever worked yourself to the bone only to have someone you love throw it all away in a single moment? If you're just joining us, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss how this turned around. And tell me in the comments, how would you react if you found your savings account at zero? The sun came through the window the next morning, but it felt mocking. I laid there staring at the ceiling, my mind replaying the numbers over and over. $7,600. It wasn't just a number to me. It was 500 morning shifts at the diner. It was thousands of miles walked in cheap shoes. It was every no I had said to myself when I wanted a coffee or a new shirt. Mark was already in the kitchen. I could hear him typing furiously on his laptop, probably refreshing his email, waiting for a ghost to reply. When I finally walked out, my eyes swollen and red, he didn't even look up. "Dave's LinkedIn profile's gone, Sarah," he said, his voice small and pathetic. "I don't understand. We were friends. He showed me photos of his house in Malibu. He looked so successful." "He looked like a predator who found an easy target, Mark," I said, my voice cold and flat. I didn't have any tears left, just a hollow, echoing anger. Don't talk to me like that. I did this for us, he snapped, finally looking at me. I was trying to get us out of this dump. You should be thanking me for having the guts to take a risk instead of just being a servant for the rest of your life. A servant? I whispered. I've been the only one working for 3 years. I'm not a servant, Mark. I'm the engine, and you just poured sugar in the tank. I didn't wait for his reply. I grabbed my bag and walked out. I had to go to the office. I had to keep working, because even though my savings were gone, the rent was still due in 5 days. That was the cruelty of it. I couldn't even afford to fall apart. That day at the office was a blur of spreadsheets and stinging eyes. I felt like a ghost walking among the living. My coworkers were talking about their weekend plans, about home renovations and kids' soccer games. I felt 1,000 miles away from them. Around 2 p.m., I was in the break room, staring blankly at the coffee machine. "You look like you're carrying the weight of the entire world on those shoulders," a voice said. I turned around. It was Leo. He was a supervisor in the logistics department. We had spoken a few times, mostly professional stuff about shipping manifests, but I hadn't really looked at him before. He was maybe a few years older than me, with kind eyes and a way of standing that made him seem very solid, like a tree that wouldn't blow over in a storm. "Just tired," I managed to say, trying to force a smile that wouldn't come. Leo stepped closer, his expression softening. "That's not just tired, Sarah. I've seen tired. I've been tired. That's the look of someone who's been blindsided. You okay?" For a second, I almost told him. I almost let the whole story spill out. The 3 jobs, the stolen money, the husband who thought I was a drone. But I swallowed it down. "I'll be fine. Just a rough patch." "Well," Leo said, reaching into his pocket and handing me a small wrapped chocolate, "it's a rough patch is easier to cross if you have a little sugar. And if you ever need someone to just vent to, I'm a very good listener. I don't judge, and I don't give advice unless you ask for it." He smiled, a genuine, warm smile, and walked back to his desk. I looked at the chocolate in my hand. It was a tiny gesture, but it felt like the first drop of rain in a desert. When I got home that evening, the atmosphere was even worse. Mark hadn't moved from the table. He had a bottle of whiskey next to him. "I called the police," he mumbled. "They said since I gave him the money voluntarily, it's a civil matter. They can't do anything unless I have a signed contract. Dave didn't give me a contract. He said it was an inner circle deal." "Of course he didn't," I said, heading to the bedroom to get my cleaning supplies for the gym. "I need you to give me your credit card," Mark said, his voice turning demanding. "I need to hire a private investigator. I found a guy online who specializes in recovering crypto and digital scams. He needs $1,000 upfront." I stopped in my tracks. I turned around and looked at the man I had married, the man I had once thought was my partner. "Are you serious? You want to spend more money we don't have to chase money that's gone?" "It's not gone. It's an investment. If I don't fight for it, we lose all of it. We already lost it all because of you." "You're so selfish," he yelled, slamming his hand on the table. "Everything is about your car and your hard work. What about my dignity? What about my career?" I didn't answer. I just walked out. That night at the gym was the hardest of my life. Every time I pushed the mop, I thought about how many more times I'd have to push it to make back that $7,600. The math was soul-crushing. It would take another 3 years. 3 more years of this? I'd be nearly 40 by the time I was back to where I was yesterday. The exhaustion finally hit me. I sat down on a weight bench in the corner of the darkened gym and just let the tears come. I sobbed until my ribs hurt. I felt so trapped. I felt like I was in a cage, and the person holding the key was the one who kept locking the door tighter. The next Monday, I saw Leo again at the office. He was waiting by the elevators. "How was the chocolate?" he asked softly. "It was the best thing I've eaten in years," I admitted. He looked at me closely. "Sarah, I'm going to be bold. I'm grabbing a sandwich at the deli across the street at noon. No strings, no business talk, just a lunch break where you don't have to look at a computer screen. Would you join me?" My first instinct was to say no. I had to work through lunch to get ahead on my data entry. I had to save every penny. But then I remembered my empty bank account. I remembered Mark drinking whiskey on my dime. "Yes," I said, "I'd like that." Lunch with Leo was the first time in years I felt like a human being. He didn't talk about himself the whole time. He asked me questions. He asked what I liked to do before I was busy. He told me about his hobby, restoring old clocks. He said, "I like things that can be fixed. Sometimes something looks broken beyond repair, but if you take it apart, clean the gears, and give it a little oil, it keeps time perfectly again. People are a lot like that too." I felt a spark of something I hadn't felt in a long time. It wasn't romance, not yet. It was seen. I felt like someone finally noticed that I was more than just a paycheck or a drone. But when I got home that afternoon, the atmosphere was even worse. Mark hadn't moved from the table. He had a bottle of whiskey next to him. "Sarah told me you've been very unsupportive of his new business venture. Marriage is about for the better or for worse, dear. You can't turn your back on your husband just because of a little financial hiccup." A little financial hiccup. My 3 years of life reduced to a hiccup by a woman who had never worked a day in her life. I looked at Mark. He was smirking behind her back. He'd called in reinforcements. He wasn't sorry. He was doubling down. He was going to gaslight me until I believed that I was the problem. That was the moment I realized I didn't just need a car, I needed a lawyer. The hardest part of being betrayed isn't the loss of money, it's the loss of the person you thought you knew. My husband didn't just spend my savings, he tried to make me feel guilty for being upset about it. He called in his mother to shame me into silence. But while he was busy trying to break my spirit, someone else was noticing my strength. Have you ever felt like a stranger in your own home, while a literal stranger at work seemed to understand you better than your own spouse? Subscribe now to see how I finally found the courage to say enough. And in the comments, tell me, have you ever had a mother-in-law interfere in your marriage like this? The air in our apartment felt like lead. Having my mother-in-law, Martha, sitting on my sofa telling me about marital duty was the final straw. Mark sat there, nodding like a child who had just told on his sister. "Sarah, dear," Martha continued, smoothing her skirt, "Mark has a brilliant mind. He just needs a partner who believes in him. Money comes and goes, but loyalty is forever. You should apologize for your coldness. It's affecting his confidence." I looked at her, then at him. I didn't yell. I didn't scream. I just felt a cold, sharp clarity. "Martha," I said quietly, "loyalty is a two-way street. He didn't just lose money, he took it without asking. If he had confidence, he'd be working a job, any job, to pay me back. Now please leave. I have a night shift to get to." Jumping up? "You're kicking my mother out after everything she's done for us?" "She hasn't done anything for us, Mark. She's here for you, just like I've been for the last 3 years. But that ends today." I walked out of the room, ignoring their protests. I went to the bathroom, locked the door, and sat on the edge of the tub. I realized then that I wasn't just working 3 jobs to buy a car, I was working 3 jobs to survive a man who was drowning me. The next day at the office, I was a mess. I made a mistake on a spreadsheet, the first one in months. Leo noticed. He didn't call me out in front of everyone. Instead, he walked over to my desk with 2 cups of tea. "Hey," he said softly, "the numbers are a bit wonky today. Want to take 5 minutes and tell me what's actually going on?" I looked up at him, and for the first time, I didn't hide it. My husband spent all my savings on a scam. Every penny I had for my car is gone, and now he's acting like I'm the villain for being angry about it. Leo pulled up a chair. He didn't say, "I'm sorry," in that empty way people do. He just listened. "My ex-wife was a gambler," he said after a moment. "Not with stocks or business deals, but with the casino. I spent 5 years trying to fill a bucket with a hole in the bottom. I thought if I worked harder, I could fix it, but you can't fix someone who doesn't think they're broken." His words hit me like a physical blow. You can't fix someone who doesn't think they're broken. "What did you do?" I asked. I realized that I was setting myself on fire to keep her warm, so I stopped. I left. It was the hardest year of my life, but it was the first year I actually felt like I was breathing.
He stayed with me for a few more minutes, just talking about normal things. He told me about a local delivery company that was looking for dispatchers, a job that paid more than my data entry and didn't require a car. He was looking out for me, not as a project, but as a person. When I got home that evening, Mark was waiting. He wasn't drinking this time, he was working. He had printouts of new investment opportunities spread across the table. Sarah, look, I found a guy in Singapore. It's a gold-backed digital currency. If we can just get $500 together for the entry fee, we can recoup everything in 90 days. $500? I asked. We don't have $500, Mark. The rent is due. I was thinking, your engagement ring. We could pawn it, just for a month. It's a sure thing this time, I swear. I looked at the ring on my finger. It wasn't even expensive. We had bought it when we were young and broke, but it represented a promise he had broken a long time ago. No, I said. It's just a piece of metal, Sarah. Don't be so materialistic. I walked into the bedroom and started packing a bag. I didn't have much, just some clothes and my work uniforms. What are you doing? Mark shouted, following me. You're being dramatic. You're not leaving. Where would you go? You have no money. You have no car. You're nothing without this apartment. I'm already nothing here, Mark. I'm just a bank account to you. I'd rather be broke and alone than broke and humiliated. He grabbed my arm, not hard enough to bruise, but hard enough to show control. You're not going anywhere. You owe me. I spent years supporting your dreams when we first met. You supported me for 6 months when I finished my degree, Mark. I've supported you for 36. The debt is paid. I twisted my arm away and walked toward the door. My heart was thumping hard. I thought it would burst. I had no plan. I had no place to stay. I had $40 in my pocket. If you walk out that door, I'm calling the landlord, he screamed. I'll tell him you abandoned the lease. I'll ruin your credit. I'll tell everyone you're having an affair with that guy from your office. I froze. How do you know about Leo? I saw your messages. Thanks for the chocolate. Thanks for listening. You're a cheat, a selfish, lying cheat. He hadn't just stolen my money, he had been spying on me. He was trying to build a cage of lies around me so I'd be too afraid to leave. I opened the door. The hallway of the apartment building felt like a tunnel to another world. Call whoever you want, Mark. Tell them whatever you want. But look around this room, because starting tomorrow, you're the one who has to figure out how to pay for it. I walked out. I didn't look back. I walked 3 miles to the gym where I worked my night shift. I cleaned the floors with a ferocity I'd never felt before. When I finished at midnight, the manager, an older guy named Bill, saw me sitting on my suitcase in the break room. Rough night, Sarah? Rough life, Bill. I sighed. The gym has a small apartment upstairs for the night security. He moved out last week. It's just a bed and a hot plate. You can stay there for a few days while you figure things out. Just keep the locker rooms extra clean and we'll call it even. It wasn't a palace. It was a tiny room above a loud gym. But as I laid down on that thin mattress, I realized something. For the first time in years, the only person I had to take care of was me. But Mark wasn't going to let me go that easily. The next morning, I had 20 missed calls and a text that made my blood run cold. I'm coming to your office today. Everyone is going to know what kind of woman you really are.
The monster you live with is scary, but the monster who feels he's losing control is dangerous. My husband didn't just want my money anymore. He wanted to destroy my reputation and the only safe place I had left, my job. He showed up at my office, screaming lies, ready to watch me burn. But he forgot one thing. When you push a woman who has worked 3 jobs to survive, you're pushing someone who has nothing left to fear. Stay with me, because what happened in that lobby changed my life forever. Don't forget to subscribe and tell me in the comments, have you ever had an ex try to ruin your career out of spite? I stood in the small room above the gym, looking at the cracked ceiling. My phone was vibrating so hard it nearly fell off the nightstand. 25 missed calls, 12 texts, all from Mark. I'm at the bus stop. I'm 5 minutes away from your office.
Everyone is going to know you're a thief and a cheater, Sarah. Let's see how Leo likes you when you're unemployed. My heart was hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. I hadn't slept more than 2 hours. I felt dizzy, my stomach churning with a mix of hunger and pure, unadulterated dread. I had to go to work. If I lost the office job, I lost everything. That paycheck was my only lifeline to a real apartment, a real life. I walked into the office building at 8:55 a.m. I tried to keep my head down, my hair covering my face. I just needed to get to my cubicle. I just needed to disappear into the spreadsheets. Sarah! The voice boomed through the marble lobby. I froze. Mark was standing near the elevators. He looked disheveled, his shirt wasn't tucked in, his hair was a mess, and his eyes had a frantic, wild glint. He looked like a man who had stayed up all night fueling his rage with cheap whiskey. "Mark, please," I whispered, rushing toward him to pull him toward the exit. "Let's go outside." "Oh, now you want to talk?" he yelled, his voice echoing off the high ceilings. People in suits began to slow down, their eyes darting toward us. "Hey, everyone," he shouted, waving his arms. "This woman is a fraud. She abandoned her husband. She's been funneling money into a secret account while I sat at home starving." The irony was so sharp it felt like a physical sting. He was the one who had emptied our life savings. He was the one who had never missed a meal while I skipped lunch to save $5. "Mark, stop it," I said, my voice trembling. "You're lying. You know you're lying." "Am I?" He stepped closer, towering over me. He smelled of stale cigarettes and desperation. "Where's Leo? Is he the one who told you to leave? Is he the one who's paying for your little escape?" Suddenly, a firm hand landed on Mark's shoulder. "That's enough." It was Leo. He wasn't shouting. He didn't look angry. He looked disgusted. He stood between me and Mark, his presence like a stone wall. "Who the hell are you?" he spat, trying to shake Leo's hand off. "The savior? The guy who likes taking other men's wives?" "I'm the guy who's calling security," Leo said calmly, pulling a radio from his belt. "And I'm the guy who's going to walk Sarah to her desk. You have 10 seconds to leave this building before the police arrive. This is private property, and you are harassing an employee." "She's my wife," Mark screamed, his face turning a deep, ugly purple. "A wife isn't property, Mark," Leo replied, his voice dropping to a dangerous low. "And a husband doesn't steal her life savings and then try to get her fired. Go home before you do something you can't walk back from." 2 security guards appeared, their boots clicking loudly on the floor. Mark looked around, realizing he had lost the audience. People weren't looking at me with judgment. They were looking at him with pity and alarm. He pointed a finger at me, his hand shaking. "You're dead to me, Sarah. You hear me? You'll be begging to come back when you're sleeping on the street." The guards escorted him out. The lobby fell into a heavy, awkward silence. I felt like I was going to faint. My knees buckled, but Leo caught my arm, steadying me. "I'm so sorry," I sobbed, hiding my face in my hands. "I'm so sorry for the scene. I'll go. I'll hand in my resignation. I can't stay here after that." "Don't you dare," Leo said, his voice fierce but kind. "You didn't do anything wrong, Sarah. He did. Everyone saw it. If you quit, he wins. He wants you to have nothing, so you have to go back. Is that what you want?" I looked up at him, my vision blurred by tears. "No, I'd rather die." "Then go to your desk," Leo said, handing me a tissue. "Do your work. Be the best data entry specialist this company has ever seen. Show them and yourself that he has no power over you." The rest of the day was a test of endurance I didn't think I could pass. Every time the elevator dinged, I jumped. Every time someone walked past my cubicle, I felt their eyes on me. But slowly, the hours ticked by. My manager came by later, and instead of firing me, she just put a hand on my shoulder. "We've all had a Mark in our lives, Sarah. You're safe here." When 5 p.m. rolled around, I was exhausted. I was heading to the gym to work my 3rd shift when Leo caught me at the door. "I'm driving you," he said. It wasn't a question. "Leo, you don't have to." "I know I don't have to. I want to." We sat in his car, a modest, clean sedan. It smelled of cedar and old books. It was the first time in years I had been in a car that wasn't a taxi or a bus. He didn't try to hold my hand or make a move, he just drove. I talked to a friend of mine, Leo said as we stopped at a red light. He's a divorce attorney. He does pro bono work for women in difficult situations. He's expecting a call from you tomorrow. Don't worry about the money. He'll take his fee from the settlement, even if it's just the furniture and the security deposit. Why are you doing this for me? I asked, looking at his profile. Leo looked at me, and there was a sadness in his eyes that matched mine. Because I know what it's like to wait for a car that's never coming. I know what it's like to work for a dream that someone else keeps burning down. You've got a lot of light in you, Sarah. Don't let him blow it out. He dropped me at the gym. I watched him drive away, and for the first time, I didn't feel like a victim. I felt like a survivor. But as I walked into the gym, Bill, the manager, looked at me with a worried expression. Sarah, some guy was here an hour ago. He said he was your brother. He was asking where the security apartment was. I didn't tell him, but I think he's still outside. My heart stopped. Mark knew I was sleeping. He wasn't done. He was escalating. And I realized that the hardest battle wasn't the divorce. It was going to be the night I finally had to stand my ground alone.
The moment you stop running is the moment you start winning. My husband thought he could corner me in a dark parking lot and scare me back into his cage, but he forgot that I had spent years becoming stronger than he ever was. This is the end of my journey, where the tears finally dry and a new sun rises. If my story touched you today, please subscribe and leave a comment. Did you ever have to lose everything to finally find yourself? Let's finish this together. The gym was quiet, the hum of the vending machines the only sound in the hallway. Bill's warning echoed in my ears. Mark was here. He was hunting me now, not because he loved me, but because he couldn't stand the idea of losing his source of income, his drone who paid for his life. I didn't go up to the security apartment. I knew that if I trapped myself in that small room, I'd be vulnerable. Instead, I stayed in the brightly lit lobby of the gym, near the large glass windows. I called Leo. "He's here," I whispered, my voice shaking. "He's outside." "Stay where you are, Sarah," Leo said, his voice like iron. "I'm calling the police and I'm coming to you. Don't go outside. Do you hear me? Don't go out there." But as I hung up, I saw him. Mark was standing across the street, leaning against a lamppost. He looked small. For the first time, I didn't see a monster. I saw a broken, bitter man who had wasted his life and wanted to waste mine too. I took a deep breath. I didn't go outside to fight. I went to the door and locked it. I stood there looking through the glass, and when our eyes met, I didn't flinch. I didn't cry. I just looked at him with pity. Mark started walking toward the door. He began pounding on the glass, his face contorted in a silent scream. "Open the door, Sarah. You're making a mistake. We're a team. You can't do this to me." I watched his lips move, but I didn't hear a word. I just saw the desperation of a man who realized the bank was closed. The servant was gone. Within minutes, blue and red lights began to swirl against the gym walls. 2 police cars pulled up, and for the second time that day, Mark was being told to move along. But this time, they didn't just walk him away. Because I had the courage to show them the texts, the threats, and the history of the stolen money, they served him with an emergency restraining order on the spot. As they led him away, a familiar car pulled into the lot. Leo jumped out before the engine had even stopped. He ran to the door, and when I unlocked it, he didn't say a word. He just pulled me into a hug that felt like coming home after a long, cold war. "It's over," he whispered in my hair. "It's really over." The next few months were a whirlwind. With the help of the lawyer Leo recommended, the divorce went through faster than I expected. Mark tried to fight for alimony. He actually had the nerve to ask me to pay him, but the judge saw the bank statements. The judge saw the $7,600 investment that went to a scammer. Mark left with nothing but his clothes and his big ideas.
I kept working. I kept the office job, and with Leo's help, I moved into a small but beautiful studio apartment of my own. It had a balcony with a view of the city, and every morning I sat there with a cup of coffee that I had earned in a home that was mine. One Saturday morning, Leo called me. He said, "Come downstairs, I have something to show you." I walked out to the curb, and there it was. It wasn't a brand new luxury car, it was a silver pre-owned SUV, polished until it shone in the sun. "I know you were saving for something like this," Leo said, leaning against the door. "I found a great deal at an auction. It needs a little work on the interior, but the engine is solid. It's yours, Sarah. You can pay me back whenever you want. No interest, no deadlines." I ran my hand over the cool metal of the hood. I started to cry, but they were different tears this time. They were tears of relief. I wasn't a drone. I wasn't a servant. I was a woman with a car and a future. Today, my life looks nothing like it did a year ago. I don't work 3 jobs anymore. I'm a senior dispatcher at the logistics company, a promotion I earned because I finally had the energy to focus on my own career instead of someone else's ego. Leo and I are taking things slow. We go to dinner, we talk about books, and sometimes we just sit in silence. The good kind of silence, the kind that feels like peace. Looking back, I realized that the stolen money wasn't the biggest tragedy. The tragedy was that I stayed so long, thinking I was helping someone when I was actually just enabling their destruction. We often think that loyalty means staying until the end, but true loyalty is being loyal to yourself first. Sometimes we're the ones holding ourselves back. We stay with the wrong people because we're afraid of the empty space they'll leave behind. But it's only when you clear that space that someone better, someone like Leo, or even just a better version of yourself, can move in. Don't wait until your bank account is at 0 to realize your worth. You are the engine of your own life. Make sure the person in the passenger seat is someone who knows how to read the map, not someone who's trying to steal the fuel. My name is Sarah, and I'm finally driving my own life. Thank you for listening.